Imagine why Abram in that first reading has a plan B. It's still 2 more chapters till he gets renamed and given a new life as Abraham, the father of nations, ancestor of multitudes. And it's about 6 chapters or so until his son Isaac shows up. And so far what Abram knows is that a God that he hardly knows has sent him from home to go wander as a refugee. He's protected him, and he's made him this promise. You, Abram, will have your own child. But he and his wife Sarai, who is about to become Sarah, are 80 years old. And I'm told that at that age, the odds of becoming a first-time parent are less, shall we say. So it's not hard to understand why he might have some questions and why he might have a plan B. God has said, you will have your own child, and it doesn't seem to be coming up, and it doesn't seem like it makes sense. And so Abram has plan B. He's a schemer. He's sort of a one who wants to know and be on the inside, and he comes up with what he decides must be God's plan. Well, having a kid doesn't look very obvious nor very likely. God must mean that I will just adopt my slave Eliezer, and then he and his kids will be my descendants. So when God comes back and repeats the promise, Abram sort of nudges God in the sides and says that he's in on the joke. Yeah, I get it. Eliezer is going to be my descendant. Plan B. The thing is, Abram doesn't yet know our God very well, does he? He has not yet learned that our God does not do partial promises. God doesn't go part of the way to fulfill promises, and he doesn't promise just part of what we need. God goes for the renewal of the whole world, the making all things new. Our God is the kind of God who goes all the way for whatever is needed for the sake of those he loves. Abram just hasn't quite learned that yet. And so because Abram doesn't know God very well, when the promise seems like it's delayed, remember it's another 6 chapters before Isaac shows up, Abram gets impatient. And again, that's not so hard for us to understand either, is it? Because we are rotten at waiting, right? Go like this. Oh, waiting is miserable, isn't it? And we are terrible at it, especially when we're waiting on somebody else, especially somebody we don't know very well. Like if we don't know, like Abram doesn't know God very well, that waiting for someone else, we are terrible at it because it's so hard on us. We like to have control. We like to be in charge, and when we're waiting, it's out of our control. Just think about how many of the things that we consider, that we encounter as temptation, are nothing more than shortcuts, right? Oreo cookies. Oreo cookies promise us satisfaction and comfort, but they are nothing more than a shortcut to feeling fulfilled, which is what we really want, that we know really comes from healthy eating and exercise and all that stuff like that. Oreo cookies are a shortcut that can't provide. And think about how many other things out there are. Every lifestyle purchase, like Nike shoes and fancy cars and such like that, those are offering a shortcut to a life that we think that we want. But other things too, like gossip, pornography, power, and the semblance of control over our world, those are offering us only shortcuts to what we really need. And we fall for them because we too have this sense, like Abram, that we can know better than God. Like we're going to pull one over on God. Surely that's what you say, God, isn't the only way for what I need. So we have a hard time waiting. And I've been wondering lately if that difficulty waiting is part of why we have such trouble with change. Right? Change is scary. We don't like it. We resist it. We want to stay away from it. We like things the way they are. But it's interesting. We will hold on to the way things are even if it is hurtful and even if it is not the best for us. We know, because we've been given a promise, that God is about making all things right and all things new for all people, the whole world. And we know when that day comes, there will be enough and what is right for all people, what we call justice, and which leads to peace. We know that that is to come, but it seems like it's taking a long time, and so we get impatient. And as we are impatient, we get used to the way things are. We don't want to wait and work for what is to come, and instead we start controlling this hurtful situation. So even though it hurts us and is not right, we hold that. And we don't like anything that's going to upset a status quo. We see it in the Pharisees today. In our gospel lesson, the Pharisees come to warn Jesus and they say, "Get out of here, Herod wants to kill you." And Jesus responds to them, interesting. He says, "Well, I'm trying to die. But it's not Herod who is danger to me." And he insults Herod. He calls him a fox, which was a nasty thing to say back in the day. And he says, "No, look, I'm on my way to Jerusalem. I know where I'm going. And I'm not going to stop halfway. I'm going to Jerusalem and then beyond it to that hill where the cross will be waiting." He says, "I think you have a problem with Herod." Because what the Pharisees are doing, perhaps, is coming and saying, "Jesus, get out of here. Don't poke the rabid maniac in the corner. He's only mauled 3 people today and chopped off the heads of 2 of our children. It's a good day. Don't rock the boat. Don't mess this up for us, Jesus. We've learned how to live with this maniac over here. So clear on out of here." But again, the Pharisees don't know our God very well, do they? They have not yet learned just how far God will go. Jesus, on his way to Jerusalem, knows the danger to his life is not this rabid maniac Herod, but it is among the crowd that he came to save, the voices that will cry out, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." Jesus knows where he's going, and he knows who's going to drag him to that hill and put him on the cross. He knows what is coming, and he goes all the way for us. Jesus doesn't do partial promises. Jesus will do whatever it takes so that we can know Jesus goes all the way for all people to open heaven, all the way for all that he loves. Jesus, God's walking heart on earth, will not do a partial promise. And so when God says to Abram in his vision, "Go get some livestock." And you heard the list. It's these 3-year-old animals, and bring them here. And then Abram, I'm told, and those who were hearing this would think, "Oh, something got serious now. Now it's going to be some sort of worship service," or, as it turns out, a ceremony of an unbreakable promise, what we would call a covenant. And so Abram brings the animals. We're not sure where he gets them from, but he brings the animals and then he hacks them in 2 and separates the halves like this and sets up this nice little lovely bloody aisle as he's going there, and then spends the day driving away buzzards and vultures and things like that, waiting again for what is to come. And then, just so that Abram, and especially us, so that we can understand and be clear about this, God puts Abram to sleep. Just like God did with Adam when he was about to do something remarkable with his rib, God puts Abram to sleep so that we have no question that we do nothing in this promise. It is all on God. And so Abram, who's deeply drowsy, watches as this smoking fire pot and the flaming torch, a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire, go marching down this aisle. This is a ceremony of an unbreakable promise. And in that day, this covenant ceremony meant the one who walks down that aisle is saying, if I break this promise, let what happened to those poor animals be done to me. But it is utterly shocking that it's God. It's not supposed to be God going down that bloody aisle. But that's who our God is. We have the kind of God who will stop at nothing. We have the kind of God who will promise all the way and make these wild, extravagant promises and then keep them. We have the kind of God who will scour the dark streets for lost souls. And when one comes back, he will throw an extravagant party that soul has been found. We have the kind of God who will scour the landscape looking for one little lost lamb, and when he finds it, will put it on his shoulders and carry it back where it belongs. We have the kind of God who will go to where we cannot, into death, to break it open for us. The kind of God who will go all the way so that all of us know that we are loved all the way. This is the kind of God we have. A shocking, surprising, extravagant God who makes these wild promises that we can count on because it's God who made them. So listen and hear the promise of God for you today. You are my child. I have chosen you. I love you. And there's nothing that will ever change that. Thanks be to God.